welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, imagine this invisible force almost, shaping your thoughts, your beliefs, maybe even your whole society. It's not magic, it's definitely not some conspiracy, it's something called a meme. And today, we're diving deep into how these powerful idea units, well, they don't just go viral online, they actually seem to fundamentally construct our reality.
That's exactly right. Our goal today really is to explore how memetic theory gets critically folded into this powerful new framework. It's called the Cognosystemic theory of human psychosocial relational construction.
Bit of a mouthful.
It is. So we'll mostly call it TCCR. It's developed by Susan Blackmore. And this deep dive, it's going to reveal the meme not just as, a fleeting internet thing, but as a really fundamental unit of narrative meaning, one that spreads, changes, and basically structures our human psychosocial systems.
What strikes me as really remarkable about TCCR is exactly that connection, how it links narrative, our stories, with this kind of evolutionary model of memes. It feels like one of TCCR's most original contributions, almost like a shortcut to understanding these invisible forces, the ones shaping our collective realities. So, okay, let's unpack this a bit. Now, most of us, when we hear meme, we think, funny cat pictures, viral videos, that kind of thing. Spreads like wildfire online.
Right, the internet meme.
But the academic idea actually goes way back. We're talking Richard Dawkins, 1976. He first proposed the meme as a unit of cultural transmission. And he drew this really compelling analogy to the biological gene.
The gene analogy is key.
Yeah, he suggested that just like genes compete to replicate and survive, well, so do ideas, behaviors, maybe even fashions. They compete for space within our minds, within our culture. It implies culture isn't static at all. It's dynamic, it's evolving.
Exactly. And Dawkins' core idea, this came from the selfish gene. It basically suggests that organisms, like us, are just temporary vehicles for genes. In his view, the genes themselves are the real agents of selection. They act, quote-unquote, selfishly for their own survival and replication across generations. He even used it to explain things like altruism.
How so?
Well, like a bird warning its flock of a predator risking itself. He called it kin selection. The idea being the sacrifice helps shared genetic material survive in relatives. So it's still the gene being selfish, in a way. But while Dawkins really laid that crucial groundwork, memetic theory didn't just stop there. It certainly evolved.
Okay.
Kate Distin, for example, in her 2005 book, The Selfish Meme, she expanded on this. She introduced the concept of cultural DNA.
Cultural DNA. Okay, that makes the analogy even tighter.
It does. Think of it like this. Biological DNA preserves and transmits genetic info. Right. Distin argued cultural DNA does something similar for ideas, beliefs, practices, helps them endure and spread.
So how does that replication work, according to Distin?
She saw memetic replication as a process where the core idea, the sort of representational content, is preserved. But crucially, it also adapts as it moves into new environments, new minds. And she argued cultural selection isn't random. It's based on a meme's ability to grab our attention, to stick, and to actually influence things, our social landscape, our culture. It's a really interesting blend of biology and philosophy to explain cultural evolution.
That's a fascinating historical path. So we go from Dawkins' gene analogy to Distin's cultural DNA. How do these ideas then make the leap into our world now, our super-connected digital world? Are we just talking about viral videos again, or is there something deeper going on?
Oh, definitely deeper. Much deeper. Recent work looks directly at digital and communicational memetics. Grant Keane, for instance, back in 2019, he talked about memetic communication as really a new form of digital interaction.
What makes it new?
Well, Keane points out its incredible ability to replicate across totally different platforms, different media, and not just replicate, but transform its own form as it goes. And through that, generate cultural effects we've just never seen before. It really forces us to rethink communication theories entirely. And building on that, other researchers, like Unger or Lynch, they emphasize how these cultural ideas, these memes, actively influence our beliefs. They shape social movements. They can subtly push us to hold on to certain ideas. Lynch calls this the preservational mode.
Okay.
Or they can attack competing ideas, the adversative mode, or sometimes they just seem logical, common sense, the cognitive mode. These aren't just fleeting fads. They're actively using our mental resources, influencing behavior, and really driving cultural evolution.
Okay, so we've traced this really interesting journey of the meme concept from Dawkins' biological analogy right up to the digital age. But at TCCR, this new framework we mentioned at the start, you said it doesn't just take this theory as is, it puts a unique spin on it.
Yes, you've absolutely hit the core difference there. TCCR doesn't just adopt memetics, it truly reimagines it. It deliberately rejects a purely mechanistic or a biologicist view.
So not just cultural genes.
Exactly. Instead, TCCR sees memes as meaningful narrative fragments, little pieces of stories, ideas, bits of meaning. And these fragments circulate constantly within and between our larger narrative systems, the stories we tell ourselves, our families, our communities.
Narrative fragments. I like that framing.
It's crucial. This reframing is a really substantial contribution, especially for fields like social work. It offers a robust theoretical structure that, frankly, moves beyond some previous limitations. It promotes a genuinely relational, narrative, and systemic perspective.
How so?
Well, it recognizes that we humans, through our everyday interactions, are constantly weaving the narratives that shape our reality. We're always generating meaning. TCCR aims to be a tool for analysis, for research, and for psychosocial intervention. It gives us a way to understand how these narrative systems work and potentially how they can be rewritten to foster well-being, resilience, and a renewed sense of agency for people. And within this framework, TCCR gives us a very precise definition of what it calls a cognosystemic meme.
Okay, what's the definition?
It defines it as a minimal unit of narrative meaning transmitted from one subject to another, from one narrative system to another, influencing perception, emotion, behavior, and relational structure.
Right, minimal unit of narrative meaning. So what does that actually mean for us day to day? How do these cognosystemic memes operate? Can you maybe walk us through a real world kind of scenario? Like, how might one function in a typical family's interactions, maybe shaping beliefs without them even realizing it?
That's a great question. These cognosystemic memes aren't just abstract concepts floating around. They are active players in our shared reality. They act as powerful vehicles for values, norms, emotions, beliefs, things that deeply organize our psychosocial experiences.
Okay.
So take a family where the meme "family is everything" is really prevalent.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
You do, and it isn't just a nice phrase. It's a deeply held narrative unit. It dictates expectations, it defines roles, it shapes emotional responses, it validates certain behaviors, maybe prioritizing family gatherings above absolutely everything else.
Right, sacrificing other things maybe?
Exactly. And it might subtly displace other discourses, other ways of thinking. Like maybe individual pursuits or friendships get seen as less important compared to family obligations because that meme is so strong. And because these memes can change, they can hybridize, mix with other ideas, they can compete with each other, they're incredibly flexible, very plastic. This flexibility means they are constantly adapting how we understand the world. They can reshape our fundamental beliefs and how we interpret experiences within that family cognosystem, that family's shared world of meaning.
That really highlights their key characteristics then. You're saying these cognosystemic memes are narratively codifiable. You can capture them in stories. They're highly replicable or sometimes maybe surprisingly resistant to change.
Yes, some are very sticky.
And they can mutate change through reinterpretation or resignification. And they're hugely influential in our identity, our relationships, and just broader cultural processes. Can you give us some more concrete examples, ones that really bring these properties to life?
Absolutely. Let's look at, say, two key properties in action. First, let's take mutation and reinterpretation. Think about the meme. Globalize the struggle, globalize hope.
Okay.
This was coined by the international peasant movement Via Campesina. Now, this isn't just a catchy slogan. It's a powerful narrative fragment. It takes the concept of globalization, which, often implies dominant economic structures, corporate power.
Right, often seen negatively.
Often. But it resignifies it. It flips it for emancipatory demands. It helps peasant farmers worldwide connect their very local struggles, maybe against land grabbing or unfair prices or poverty, connect those to a broader shared vision of social justice. It shows how a meme can be deliberately reinterpreted to serve a transformative, empowering purpose.
Like a powerful example of resignification. Yeah. What about another property?
Okay, let's consider influence and adaptation, particularly through what TCCR, borrowing from Bronfenbrenner, calls the chronosystem. That's basically how history and time shape these memes.
In historical context.
Exactly. Think about memes related to work and productivity. They've changed dramatically over time. During the Industrial Revolution, the dominant meme was all about discipline, hierarchy, individual sacrifice for the factory. That was the narrative.
Work hard, follow orders.
Pretty much. But then over time, you have labor rights movements, social changes, and new memes emerge. Memes promoting dignified work, fair conditions, worker rights. And today, with automation, remote work, the gig economy, we're We're seeing new memes emerge again, trying to re-signify the relationship between productivity, flexibility, and quality of life. Each historical period, each chronosystem, shaped and reshaped that work and productivity meme to fit its context.
That makes sense. It shows how they're not static. This naturally leads us to the idea of memetic circulation. How do these narrative fragments actually move? How do they interact within that larger system, the Cognosystem you mentioned?
Right. So Cognosystemic memes circulate across multiple levels of our environment, what Bronfenbrenner called ecosystemic levels, and they're constantly influenced by that time dimension, the chronosystem.
Can you break down those levels?
Sure. Think of it starting from your immediate circle family, close friends. That's the microsystem. Then you have how those groups interact with, say, your school or your workplace. That's the mesosystem.
Okay.
Then there are bigger external influences that affect you indirectly, like city policies or maybe your parents' workplace culture if you're a child. That's the exosystem. And finally, the broadest layer is the macrosystem overarching cultural values, political ideologies, economic systems, things like democracy, individualism, consumerism.
So memes flow between all these levels.
Exactly. And this constant flow, the circulation, it either facilitates certain narratives, helps them take hold, or it can block others, make them harder to sustain. And the Cognosystem itself, this whole interconnected web, is characterized by deep systemic interconnectivity. You can picture it as a complex network of meanings, almost like a cybernetic ecosystem where narratives are constantly interacting, feeding back on each other.
Feedback loops.
Yes, precisely. TCCR highlights three main types of narrative feedback. There's upward feedback. This is where individual narratives, personal stories can scale up and actually influence collective or organizational levels.
Like one person's story sparking a movement.
Exactly that. A personal story of overcoming, say, economic hardship might become a catalyst for group action, maybe inspiring community support networks, and sometimes eventually even influencing public policy. That's upward feedback. Then there's downward feedback. This is where broader, dominant, often hegemonic narratives, the big stories in society, structurally influence individual and group narratives. They impose meanings, they shape how we interpret things. This often acts as a mechanism of social control or adaptation.
So top-down influence.
Right. And finally, there's horizontal feedback. This happens between narratives at the same systemic level, like between different peer groups or different departments in an organization. It involves mutual adjustment, reinterpretation, maybe borrowing ideas, transferring meanings. This can lead to collaboration, but it can also lead to conflict or competition between narratives.
And the chronosystem, time, affects all of this.
Constantly. Major historical events, wars, economic crises, technological breakthroughs like the internet, they ripple through all these systems, reshaping shared values, norms, and policies across generations.
Okay, let's try to ground this even more. Can you give us some really common, everyday Cognosystemic memes we might encounter? Ones that show this dynamic clearly.
Absolutely. We can probably all recognize memes like, men don't cry?
Still hear that one.
Unfortunately, yes. Or poverty is the result of laziness. Or on a different note, family is everything. These operate as really condensed structures of meaning, little packets of narrative, and they can generate either oppression or transformation, really depending on how they're reproduced or how they get resignified. So, for example, take the meme of meritocracy, the idea that success is purely down to individual effort and talent.
The American dream narrative, partly.
Exactly. Now, on the surface, it sounds positive, encouraging, but it can have a real oppressive potential. How? By implying success is solely individual effort, it can legitimize socioeconomic inequalities, it masks structural barriers, systemic racism, lack of opportunity, inherited wealth. And if you don't succeed, well, the meme implies it's your own fault.
It obscures the system.
Precisely. Similarly, think about national security. It's a powerful meme, often used, sometimes legitimately, sometimes not, to justify restrictive measures on civil rights or privacy. But on the flip side, memes hold immense transformative potential. Think about the planet is our shared responsibility.
Yeah, the climate justice movement.
Right. That meme, originating maybe in environmental activism, has significantly reshaped political discourse, corporate behavior, and individual attitudes towards sustainability over decades. Or consider a meme like, tradition is strengthened through integration with diversity. That offers a path for cultural adaptation and growth, countering perhaps more exclusionary narratives. And then, of course, you constantly see conflicting narratives playing out. Think about economic debates. It's often framed as state interventionism versus the free market, two powerful competing memes.
Or in cultural debates.
Exactly. Ideas of a homogeneous national identity versus cultural pluralism or multiculturalism. These clashes, TCCR calls them narrative frictions, can certainly cause polarization and conflict. But sometimes, maybe surprisingly, they can also lead to new hybrid ideas or discourses that try to bridge the gap, to synthesize different viewpoints.
This is incredibly insightful. So bringing it back to practical application, what does all this mean for someone working on the ground, say in social work or maybe therapy, education? How can this deep understanding of cognosystemic memes actually be applied to make a difference?
That's the crucial link. The analysis of cognosystemic memes provides really powerful tools, especially for professions like social work. First, it enables professionals to detect those often hidden, oppressive cultural imperatives embedded in the narratives people tell about themselves and their communities.
Like spotting that meritocracy meme when someone is blaming themselves for systemic issues.
Exactly. Recognizing how that meme might be obscuring systemic inequities and contributing to feelings of shame or inadequacy. Second, and this is key, it helps professionals facilitate processes of narrative deconstruction and the generation of transformative new memes.
So not just spotting the problem, but helping change the story.
Precisely. It means helping individuals and communities to question those limiting stories, the ones holding them back, and to actively construct new, empowering narratives. And TCCR draws on some really effective tools for this, borrowing from approaches like narrative therapy.
Which focuses on restoring lives.
Right. Techniques like externalizing the problem, finding unique outcomes that contradict the dominant problem story, creating therapeutic documents that solidify a new narrative. It also connects with broader ideas TCCR integrates, like social constructivism, the idea that we build reality together. It's in critical deconstruction, taking apart assumptions in dominant stories. And also the systemic approach, seeing the individual within their web of relationships and cultural influences. It's about helping people unravel limiting beliefs and collaboratively build more empowering ones. And finally, understanding these memes helps professionals, particularly in social work, recognize that deep, lasting cultural change usually requires collective memetic transformation. It's not just about individual adjustments, though that's vital. It acknowledges that individual transformation is deeply intertwined with shifting those broader societal narratives.
What connects the micro and the macro.
Absolutely. And the TCCR framework really aims to bridge what has sometimes been a gap. Social work sometimes relying heavily on theories from other disciplines. TCCR offers a robust proprietary model grounded in social work's relational perspective for understanding this psychosocial relational construction. It provides a reflective, flexible, and adaptive framework for intervention that really considers both the unique particular human experiences and those powerful sociocultural influences, those circulating memes.
Wow. That was an incredibly insightful journey through memetics and TCCR. It really makes it clear that the cognosystemic meme isn't just an academic term. It's one of the most powerful analytical tools within TCCR. It genuinely allows us to understand how the meanings that sustain our psychosocial reality are put together, how they circulate, and crucially, how they can be transformed.
Absolutely. It shifts how you see the world, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners. As you go about your day, when you encounter a really strongly held belief or a pervasive idea, whether it's in your own life, your family, your community, or just out there in the broader society, maybe pause and ask yourself, what's the underlying narrative fragment here? What does this meme really communicate?
How is it spreading? How's it being replicated?
Exactly. And what transformations or maybe what resistance is it generating? And perhaps this raises an important question for you personally. How might your own understanding of these narrative memes empower you to be an agent of transformation, however small, in the stories you encounter and participate in every day?